And staying at the Capitol now, Governor Kathy Hochul signed a package of bills this week to close out Pride Month. And the biggest bill in that package, now law, would add new legal protections for gender-affirming care for transgender and gender-expansive people. And when we talk about gender-affirming care, there's a lot to it. People often think it's just surgery, but gender-affirming care can include everything from a new hairstyle to match someone's gender, to hormones to help with their transition, and a lot more. And in some states, that kind of care could be hard to find or even illegal. So the bill Hochul signed would allow people to come to New York to receive that care while avoiding any legal trouble. If another state tries to intervene or investigate those people, the new law blocks any cooperation from people in New York, including medical professionals and the police. The law will also protect doctors in New York from extradition and professional scrutiny for providing that care. Governor Kathy Hochul last Sunday.
And this year, as if these other state governments have nothing else to do, they've introduced over 500 anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation this year. I mean, why don't you solve the other problems of society today? This is wrong.
That law takes effect immediately. And in related news, the state education department has issued a new legal update for schools on transgender and gender-expansive students. It's a document that essentially tells schools what the law is and how to best follow it. That means that for students who come out at school, teachers and staff have to respect that. If a student starts using different pronouns or a different name, the school is legally required to follow those changes. But it's also more than that. The update explains why that's important to kids and what will be a really vulnerable time in their lives. So for more on that, we spoke this week with Kathleen DeCataldo, Assistant Commissioner of Student Support Services at the State Education Department. Kathleen, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here with you, Dan.
Thank you. So this guidance. So I want to just go over what it is and what it means and what's really in it. So if a student starts using a different name and different pronouns at school, what does the framework say that teachers and other school staff should do for that student?
So I want to start by saying it's really not guidance, it's a legal update and best practices framework. And we are saying that because there are new laws that do provide additional protections for young people. So as to your question about what should a school do? Schools are required to honor a student's request to be called by their affirmed name and by their pronouns of choice.
And so this is just for at school, right? I could see some people being concerned that maybe school staff or teachers might try to give students guidance outside of school, but that's not part of this legal update, correct?
Oh, absolutely not. No, this is just about what's going on in school. And we try to make very clear that the rest of that student's transition, that's between that student, their family, that's none of the school's business.
So tell me how this kind of happens at a school. If a student goes to a trusted teacher or a staff member, guidance counselor, whoever they really feel safe with, they sit down and say, I want to go by this name now, I want to use these pronouns. What kind of process should a school take in that regard in terms of making sure that everybody else uses that student's name and pronouns?
Well, first, the school needs to provide professional development to all school staff so that when that student does reach out, they know what to say, because maybe they don't know what to say. Maybe they would be caught off guard not realizing that student trusts them enough to come out to them. So that's the first thing that's really crucially important. And then this is a process, right? Students, and it has to be student driven. So students might just want to transition in that trusted teachers class. So in that classroom, the student would be is asking the teacher to call them by their name and encourage the other students to call them by their affirmed name and use their pronouns of choice. What we recommend is that the teacher hand off that student to a school social worker, a school counselor, who's prepared to really walk through the process of what it means to transition at school with that young person so they fully understand the ramifications of it. One of the things we really stress is that it is, because it's student driven, the student is in the best place to determine their own safety and who they want to know and who they feel comfortable with knowing that they are transitioning.
And just for students that are watching or parents of these children that might be watching, do they need to have any kind of documentation or anything like that to be treated with the correct pronouns and gender at school? Do they need some sort of documentation, or can they just come out at school?
They can just come out at school. They don't need any documentation.
And for parents, I think maybe the most controversial part of this for some people is there's a part of this that says if the student comes out, uses different pronouns and a name at school, the school is not to tell the parents. Tell me why that is.
So it's not exactly what it says,
Okay.
right? What it says is that, remember before when I was talking about the young person gets handed off to a school counselor, a school social worker, and then they talk about what this transition plan is for that student at school. And the first question is, who does that student feel safe with sharing that information with? In most instances, parents are supportive of their students, and if the student says, I'm comfortable with my parents being involved in this conversation, then the parent should absolutely be brought in and be part of that conversation. On the other hand, in a small number of cases, that we know that there are young people who become unhoused as a result of coming out with their family. There's young people who have some other adverse consequences as a result of coming out to their family. But again, ultimately, this is a case-by-case determination, student-by-student determination, and something that should be revisited often. And then ultimately, we hope that there will be a transition plan created with the school and that young person, so that young person knows what the school is going to do, and the school understands what the student is asking for. And then that should be updated frequently, so that as that young person grows more comfortable with their transition, hopefully the family's involved and they can move forward with their life.
All right, Kathleen DeCataldo, Assistant Commissioner of Student Support Services, thank you so much. We'll link to that legal update on our website. Republicans have come out against it, saying schools should be focused on bringing grades up. State Republican Chair Ed Cox said in a statement, quote, "The failure to teach basic skills will only hasten the decline in public school enrollment and exodus of families to jurisdictions that place education over ideology," end quote. Though just for your context, the legal update does not require any new curriculum to be taught.